14 warships report failures within hours. Not sinkings, not fires. Systems go dark. Bridges lose reliable position. Combat screens freeze, then reboot. The Strait of Hormuz keeps moving around them. Tankers keep closing. Dhows cut across lanes. A carrier group is not the only traffic. A destroyer's bridge team watches the compass swing. The GPS readout jumps a mile east. The officer of the deck orders manual fixes. The quartermaster plots by radar ranges. Below decks, sailors run through tight passageways. They pull circuit breakers. They swap power modules. A combat systems chief calls for a hard reset. On the horizon, Iranian islands sit low and close. Keshem is a dark line. Hormuz Island looks like a rock in the water. Larak sits nearer to the shipping lane. If 14 warships can lose function here, what else can fail? Who gains the next hour? The strait is narrow in the ways that matter. The sea room shrinks fast. Lanes funnel ships into predictable tracks. At its tightest, the transit corridor forces large vessels into fixed lines. Tankers follow traffic separation schemes. Warships escort, weave, and still stay inside boundaries. Shallow water limits evasive turns. Islands limit radar horizons. Coastal ridgelines block low angles. A small battery can hide, then fire. Iran's coastline sits within weapon range. So do its islands. Fixed cameras watch the lanes. Small craft can stage behind rocks. U.S. and partner navies know this geometry. They run patterns that keep arcs covered. They keep helicopters airborne to widen sightlines. A choke point does not need a missile to close. It needs doubt. It needs captains to slow down. It needs insurers to raise rates. The first reports come in as routine advisories. Merchant ships report GPS drift. A tanker captain sees his track slide off the lane, then a patrol craft loses steering response. Its rudder answers late. The helmsman fights it with small corrections. A frigate reports intermittent radar dropouts. The air search picture blinks. The watch team shifts to backup sensors. A destroyer's spy radar stays up, but the track quality degrades. Contacts smear, speed vectors wobble. The tactical action officer calls for tighter rules. A second destroyer loses internal comms between compartments. Sound-powered phones come out. Messengers sprint with handwritten notes. The pattern changes from nuisance to threat when propulsion alarms start. A ship's gas turbine trips. Engineers secure the plant. The shaft stops turning. The bridge announces reduced speed. The ship drifts, nose into current. A nearby tanker's bow wave pushes it sideways. A U.S. helicopter lifts off from the deck. An MH-60R climbs low, then turns toward traffic. The crew scans for small boats and mine floats. Across the water, Iranian fast boats leave a cove. They ride in a loose line. Their wakes show as white cuts on dark sea. A coastal radar on a headland rotates steadily. Its sweep is invisible, but its effect is not. Electronic support receivers aboard ships light up with pulses. In the command center ashore, officers watch screens and paper charts. They track every ship that slows. They mark every escort that widens. On day one, nobody fires. Nobody needs to. The crisis grows through actions that stay below a shot. The trigger can be a simple piece, a spoofed signal, a jammed band, a planted cyber payload, a cheap mine that never detonates but forces a halt. Warships depend on timing and trusted data. They cross-check, but they still route decisions through networks. A small fault can cascade. If a navigation feed lies, ships still move. They move into wrong water. They move into each other's space. If internal networks flap, weapons stay safe, but slow. If radar data degrades, rules tighten. If comms falter, formations spread. The first hard move comes from the air. A USP-8 Poseidon drops low over the lane. It sweeps with surface radar. It lays sonobuoys outside the track. An MQ-9 Reaper orbits farther back. It stares at small harbors. It watches boats launch. It watches trucks move on coastal roads. Iran answers with drones of its own. A Mohijer 6 rises from an airstrip. It circles islands and traffic. Its camera tracks escorts. A short-range air defense crew on a U.S. ship shifts posture. A sailor flips a switch. A gun mounts slews and tests movement. A second ship reports a different failure. Its electronic warfare suite shows false bearings. The team recalibrates. The false lines keep returning. A third ship reports a combat system reboot loop. Consoles go black, then they come back in safe mode. The list grows, 4 becomes 9, 9 becomes 14. The failures vary. That makes the event harder to pin down. The Strait of Hormuz sits between Iran and Oman. The southern shore belongs to Musandam's rugged points. The northern shore belongs to Iran's long curve. The islands act like stepping stones. Abu Musa sits west with the Tumbs nearby. Chesham stretches like a barrier. Hormuz Island anchors the choke. From these places, small teams can watch the sea. They can move missiles by truck. They can hide launchers under netting. Coastal defense systems do not need long range here, nor Guider anti-ship missiles can reach the corridor. Ballistic anti-ship systems, like college FARs, add a different angle. Iran also fields fast attack craft. Some carry rockets, some carry anti-ship missiles, many carry men with cameras and radios. Mines are the quiet weapon in this water. A few mines in the right place reshape traffic. They force escorts to slow. They force sweeping. Submarines can play too. Iran's Kilo-class boats and smaller Ghadir-class subs can lurk near depth changes. New even rumors of one can halt a convoy. U.S. doctrine in the Strait leans on layered sensing. Aegis radars, helicopters, maritime patrol aircraft, satellites, partner coast watchers. All of those systems need clean signals and stable networks. If the signals get noisy, the layers thin. The tactical picture becomes a collage. One screen says clear, another says clutter. A third shows a contact that vanishes. In this environment, a misread turn can become a collision. A warning shot can become a spiral. In the early hours, the first visible escalation is movement. Warships spread out. They leave tight columns. They take wider station. A destroyer moves ahead as a scout. Its bow cuts through chop. It keeps speed to hold control. It draws a long wake behind it. A cruiser or another escort holds back near high-value shipping. Its radar stays on. Its crew watches for low flyers and small boats. Helicopters cycle off decks more often. They fly racetrack patterns along the corridor. They call out contacts by bearing and range. Small boats appear in clusters. Some are fishing, some are not. The difference is hard at distance. A boarding team dresses in gear, helmets, vests, radios. They check rifles and non-lethal tools. They wait near a ladder. On the coast, trucks move at night. Headlights go dark between villages. They stop under overhangs and trees. Iranian crews on islands shift positions. They carry boxes to camouflaged shelters. They raise antennas, then lower them. In Washington, the Pentagon watch floor fills. Officers stand behind chairs. They point at large displays. They ask for confirmation, then ask again. In Tehran, a parallel room runs hot. Phones ring. Officers watch the sea, then watch the air. They track U.S. flights by call signs and altitude. Neither side wants a first shot on record. Both sides want the other to blink. The next phase is operational pressure. It hits through escorts, costs, and time. A coalition announces a controlled transit plan. It sets convoy windows. It asks merchant ships to stage outside the strait. Tanker captains slow in holding patterns. They burn fuel to keep position. Their crews watch the horizon for drones. Insurers react fast. Premiums climb with every reported anomaly. Some underwriters pause coverage for high-risk transits. Oil traders see the same headlines. Futures swing within minutes. Volatility rises. Not because barrels vanish, but because schedules do. Ports in the Gulf adjust arrivals. Storage fills. Refineries manage feedstock with tighter margins. On the water, warships shift to escort pairs. They bracket a tanker. One stays to port, another to starboard. They keep guns manned. They keep missile cells closed but ready. They push electronic warfare to higher power. A ship's SLQ-32 suite listens and responds. It sends out bursts to confuse seekers. It also reveals its own activity. Iran answers with more presence. More fast craft appear near islands. They shadow at range. They cut across bows, then peel away. A camera drone flies close to a mast. Sailors track it with binoculars. A gun mount follows it, but does not fire. A U.S. ship launches a small drone of its own. It climbs and looks down into coves. It sends video back to the bridge. Another warship reports a fresh failure. Its navigation suite shows a clean fix, then jumps again. The crew switches to inertial backups. An allied ship reports a sonar alarm, a contact appears, then fades. The ship turns to investigate, then returns to station. Each new report forces a choice: treat it as an accident or treat it as coordinated pressure. To keep credibility, commanders avoid claiming certainty. They show actions instead. They increase patrols. They tighten emissions control, then break it when needed. A mine countermeasures team enters the corridor. A small ship tows a sled. It creeps forward at slow speed. Divers stand by. Every slow mile adds tension. A slow ship is a target. A slow ship also becomes a shield for others. Civilian danger rises as warships maneuver among merchant hulls. A tanker cannot stop fast. A container ship swings wide when it turns. A single false signal can move a tanker into shallow water. A grounded tanker blocks lanes. A blocked lane becomes a global story. The near-trigger moment arrives through proximity. It does not need a strike. A fast boat rushes close to an escort's bow. It throws spray. It turns sharp at the last seconds. The escort's bridge orders 5 short blasts. The horn cuts through wind. Sailors on the bow wave arms. The boat keeps coming. The escort fires flares. Bright arcs rise, then fall into the sea. The boat finally turns away. It leaves a tight circle of foam. It heads back toward an island. Minutes later, a drone drops lower. It lines up with the ship's flight deck. The ship's crew tracks it with optical sights. A sailor calls range and closure speed. Another calls altitude. The ship shifts course to keep separation. A combat information center sees a new contact at low altitude. The track bounces. The watch officer assumes it is small and close. A missile defense team turns key switches. They move from training posture to real posture. Fingers hover near approvals. On a coastal ridge, a missile battery raises a launcher, then lowers it. Spotters watch to see if the movement gets noticed. A radar beam sweeps again. A U.S. ship's receivers record the frequency. Analysts ashore match it to known sets. A second later, a ship's systems glitch again. A comms circuit drops. A console freezes. A GPS line jumps. A commander sees 2 problems at once: a tactical threat and an internal failure. That is where mistakes happen. The immediate response is deconfliction by distance. Ships pull back from the center lane. They create more room for merchant traffic. Aircraft take over some screening. P-8S stay on station longer. Fighters from nearby bases appear at higher altitude. Iranian aircraft may rise too. Older fighters can still show presence. Drones can still cue coastal systems. Diplomatic channels start moving behind the scenes. Envoys call, military hotlines test connectivity, messages shorten, public statements stay careful. They talk about freedom of navigation, they talk about stability, they avoid naming a culprit. Behind those statements, each side tests the other's thresholds. That testing is visible on water and in air. A U.S. ship runs a defensive turn. It changes heading by 10 degrees. It checks whether shadowing craft adjust. Iranian boats mirror the move. They keep range but hold bearing. That tells the escort it is being tracked. A U.S. helicopter drops to wave height. It overflies the boats. The rotor wash sprays the sea. The boats split apart. 2 head east, 1 heads west. They move towards separate coves. A drone overhead keeps filming. Its camera stays steady. The footage will be used later, by someone. Oil risk now becomes daily. A delayed convoy means delayed deliveries. A delayed delivery can trigger panic buying in some markets. Civilian danger becomes personal. Seafarers send messages home. They tell families the transit feels different. Economic shock spreads through logistics. Shipping rates climb, container schedules slip. Some carriers reroute around Africa at huge cost. Military shifts become more public. U.S. bases in the region increase alert levels. Patriot and THAAD batteries tighten posture. Iran's coastal defenses may shift too. Crews disperse. Launchers move to alternate sites. Air defenses protect key nodes. A chain reaction forms. More assets move to the Gulf. More assets create more contact points. More contact points create more chances. In this phase, the crisis is not one event. It becomes a rhythm of incidents. A tanker reports a near miss with an unmanned surface craft. The craft is small. It has no lights. It drifts across the lane. A warship approaches and fires warning shots into water. The shots kick up splashes. The craft keeps drifting. A boarding team hooks it with a line. They pull it close. They find batteries, wiring, and a cheap antenna. No flag appears. No signature appears. The object is just enough to force an escort to slow. Another ship finds a floating mine-like object. It might be a decoy. It might be real. Either way, the lane closes briefly. EOD personnel move fast. They ride a small boat to the object. They attach charges. They detonate at distance. The blast throws a white column of water. Shock waves ripple. Everyone watches for secondary blasts. Nothing else explodes. The lane reopens, but the fear stays. A warship's engineering crew fights another system fault. They swap a control board. They restart a pump. The ship regains speed, but the crew now expects the next fault. That changes decisions. It slows the whole formation. Iranian media shows footage of boats and missiles. US media shows maps and escorts. Each frame shapes public pressure. Leaders now face domestic audiences. They face allies, they face markets, they also face the physics of the strait. The consequence triad starts to lock in. On the military side, both navies shift from presence to readiness. They burn more fuel. They fly more hours. They wear crews down. A carrier strike group may stay farther out. Escorts rotate into the strait in smaller packets. Submarines patrol outside the choke. Iran disperses and hides. It uses geography. It uses civilian clutter. It uses short movements at night. Rules of engagement tighten. Commanders demand higher confidence before firing. Higher confidence takes time. Time is scarce in close waters. On the diplomatic side, regional states try to avoid being dragged in. Oman signals neutrality. The UAE increases port security. Saudi Arabia watches oil flows and threats. Iraq watches its own politics. Qatar watches gas shipments. Back-channel talks focus on off-ramps. They seek mutual restraint without public concessions. Each side also uses diplomacy as cover for positioning. A call buys hours. Hours allow assets to move. On the economic side, the shock hits fastest. Even a small disruption triggers pricing moves. Traders react to risk, not barrels. Freight costs rise, insurance costs rise, crew hazard pay rises. The costs pass into goods worldwide. Some refiners shift sourcing, some buyers stockpile, some governments consider releases from strategic reserves. All of this happens while ships still move. That is the point. The crisis works without closure. The strategic verdict comes from the shape of the failures. 14 warships disabled in hours is not a classic kinetic strike. A missile hit leaves debris and heat. A mine strike leaves a hole and smoke. This pattern looks like friction injected into operations. It looks like a test of dependence on signals. If the core problem is navigation spoofing, the message is simple. Your high-tech fleet still needs trusted position. If the core problem is network disruption, the message is sharper. Your combat power depends on software and clean power. If the core problem is mixed, the message is the harshest. Many small tools can create big hesitation. The hidden truth is not that ships are weak. The hidden truth is that chokepoints amplify small actions. A spoofed GPS jump in open ocean is annoying. In Hormuz, it can force a convoy to stop. A drone near a mast in open water is a curiosity. In Hormuz, it can trigger a defensive posture shift. A floating object in a wide sea is a note. In Hormuz, it can halt traffic for hours. The long-term impact is doctrinal. Navies will treat electronic warfare and spoofing as primary threats in choke points. They will train crews to navigate without GPS under stress near civilian traffic. They will harden networks and power systems. They will also rethink public thresholds. If a rival can raise insurance costs without firing, that becomes a strategic tool. For Iran, the lesson is leverage through geography. It can create risk without full escalation. It can pressure without open war. For the United States, the lesson is deterrence through resilience. It must show that disruptions do not stop transits. Best-case outcomes still look tense. Escorts increase, but calm holds. Hotlines work. Both sides accept a slow return to normal. Worst-case outcomes come fast. A collision kills sailors. A warning shot hits a boat. A missile launch gets misread. Then retaliation starts, and it does not stay inside the strait. It spreads to bases, ports, and energy sites. Hours become days, days become weeks. Markets price a new normal. Crews operate exhausted. Mistakes multiply. The closing loop returns to the first image, a bridge team staring at a drifting position. The quartermaster draws a new line on the chart. The helmsman steadies the wheel. The engineer brings one turbine back online. Outside, tankers still pass, one by one. Drones still orbit. Small boats still watch. 14 warships can recover and move again. The harder question stays open. If the strait can be bent without a shot, what stops the next bend?